There you go.
So I'm joined from Florida by a very influential man in the world of harness racing. Most guys in Ireland think they got a problem if they own 8 or 9 horses. This man at the minute might have how many horses, Eric?
Something north of 200.
That's a big feed, Bill, Eric. I'd love to be supplying you with hay and oats.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So Eric Cherry has been introduced to me by our friend Bill Donovan. Eric has around 130 broodmares, maybe 50 horses of racing age and 50 horses of young stock. Which trainers are you using at the minute?
Oh, what trainer? Okay. So I have a few different trainers. Nifty Norman, Brett Pelling, Linda Toscano. There are a few of them. Tony Alagna, Ron Burke. Pretty much the top echelon of what races and stake races over here.
Some big names there, Eric.
Yep.
Who was your most successful horse in recent seasons?
Well, on the male side, it would have been recently Bettor's Wish. He won the 3 and the 4-year-old horse of the year, and is right now successfully standing stud. And on the filly side, mare side, over the years, my favorites were Drop the Ball and Tug River Princess, and actually Southwind Tempo.
Very good. You told me an interesting story about you bought Bettor's Wish after watching him be second in a race.
Right. Well, actually, what happened in the Meadowlands Pace, for people that didn't watch it, he was parked the whole mile, first over, we call it here. I'm not sure what you call it over there. He got something around the head or neck. I believe it was a head. And he was just so tough that I inquired about buying into him, because not only did I want to own him for the rest of the race season, I was really looking for down the road as a stud. His guts were just incredible. You just don't see horses do that. So if he had won the race, it probably would have been very difficult for me to get him bought. But because he finished second, one of the owners was glad, we made a deal and he sold it, his share of the horse, and worked out good for everybody. He's not a breeder. The gentleman wasn't a breeder. So it worked out good for everybody.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked out. I had an interesting conversation with John Campbell about how a thoroughbred horse can be 3 or 4 wide for the entire mile and still finish strong. But a standardbred horse parked out is a big disadvantage. And I haven't quite worked out why it is. Maybe it's the width of the sulkies, but our horses do not like to be parked out.
I think it's a combination of the width of the sulkies and the turns are a big percentage of the race compared to some of the thoroughbred tracks. But I also think the way we train horses, all animals are smart, and horses learn what it is to win and what it is to lose. And pretty much when they train, we don't train 3, 4 wide. We kind of line them up, they sprint home. And I think that it's just something they're not used to. But I think it does, the amount of turns we go around and the width of the sulky, like you say, is definitely a disadvantage, especially with doing it at a slower speed. It's so fast, but a slower speed than thoroughbreds. So I just think it's a combination of things, but it is much tougher.
You should know, you've been watching harness racing a long time. I'm told you got involved first around 1969 at Roosevelt.
That's correct.
Do you remember the glory days of the sport?
I sure do. At the time, we didn't realize they were the glory days. We just thought they were great days. But as time went on, we realized, not just from our memories, but just by pictures, the size of the crowds and everything else. And even if you have so much off track today, it's just not the same electricity as when you're there in the middle of a crowd or even a mob, as you can be sometimes. But it's much more exciting when you're actually there with the crowd. But those are days gone past.
What was it Mr. Dancer and Mr. Houghton were known as when they were young men?
They were the Gold Dust twins.
Yeah, they won a big percentage of the races, didn't they?
They had the big owners and they had the best horses, and between three. The funny thing is, Meadow Skipper was a great stallion over here, and when her business, I looked at Houghton and Dancer and all the couple of people, Popfinger, and I realized they every year they had the best horses. Then I realized between all 4 of them or 5 of them, they had probably 90% of the Meadow Skippers. Not that they weren't good trainers in their own right, they were, but because of that, it became a cycle. They got the best horses, They were the good trainers. They got the best horses. So it kept going around until now you have a lot more sires that, can throw a good horse. It's not so, it's still the best sires still throw the best horses, but it's a lot harder to get them.
He was such an influential sire, Meadow Skipper, wasn't he?
Yep, he's tremendous. Also today, about 28% of stake winners never go through a sale. A lot of them are homebreds. So back then, horses were sold. Today, you also competing with a lot of the homebreds.
Interesting. Well, if we could move things up to the reason we're here tonight, this is part of a celebration of the Invest in Ourselves initiative, where with the help of some wealthy American breeders like yourself, Phil Donovan, with Betting Line, your horse Heston Blue Chip, is that correct?
Yes.
And Casey Coleman has been helpful with Betting Line. Those three great stallions have been made available to Irish breeders at a discounted rate. We thank you wholeheartedly for that, and our sport owes an awful lot to the United States for this generosity. But do a sales pitch. If I'm an ordinary guy in Ireland, I can't make my mind up whether to go to Betting Line, Heston Blue Chip, or Cattle Wash. You're a salesman, Eric. Tell me what's so good about Heston Blue Chip.
Okay, so first of all, Heston Blue Chip has much better looking owners.
Right.
Okay.
That's a fact. I have to agree with you on that.
So that's not me. That's you telling me before we got on the air.
Right.
So anyhow, Heston Blue Chip has both good, solid top and bottom lines. All three of them. It's interesting you mentioned all three because one is Cattle Wash is the beach line, right? Betting Line is Bettor's Delight, which is Camp Fella, and then my horse is also the Western Hanover line. So even though Betting Line and my horse go back to Most Happy Fella, who's a son of Meadow Skipper, they've become so distinct between the two of them over the generations, where the other horse, Cattle Wash, has nothing to do with those.
Yeah.
But the Western line is a very solid line here. The maternal line, though, is tremendous on Heston Blue Chip. And that's what got me involved with him. He made over $2 million and was, as I said, he was him himself was a 3-year-old of the year. And he beat horses like Sweet Lou in the Breeders' Crown. Rock'n'Roll Advance was that same crop. Mike's Power, Bolt the Door, really solid crop. But his maternal family is also incredible. It goes back to a mare called Katie and Katie's Lucky Lady. And from there, you have many other sires and dams that produce. Rockin' Image, Rockin' Image.
Could you repeat that mare's name? Did you say Kicky Katie?
Kicky Katie.
I think Kicky Katie could be related to the good sire in this country, Kicky Colt, possibly.
Yeah.
John Richardson could correct me. He trained Kicky Colt.
Okay. Yeah. So but basically is that you have Rockin' Amadeus, Tell It Like It Is. As I say, Rockin' Image. They're all from the same maternal family, and her dam is also Heston Blue Chip's a brother to a horse called Sunfire Blue Chip, who's only had 25 foals, but his average horse has made $87,000 so far, and he's just gone back into stud. He made about 1.8 million himself on the racetrack. And then there are good fillies as well. Mare called Gwenny J. I'm Trigger Happy. I noticed this probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and I started accumulating almost like a collector, many members of the family. Yeah. And I probably about 60 or 70% of the first 4 generations that are still producing it.
You've cornered the market.
Have sisters that has some Blue Chip. As a matter of fact, last week, about 2 weeks ago, we had a Captain Crunch brother to Heston Blue Chip that was born by Captain Crunch. So it's a family that, and it's also the same maternal family as Kissing in the Sand. So every year you see 1 or 2 great producers and performers out of this family.
It's a fantastic pedigree, Eric. Obviously, listening to you, and we all know the maternal line is so important in a good stallion.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I like horses that have deep families. I don't like what I call orphans. Orphans with me, a horse that have like no black type and have no family. Yeah. So even if they might be good themselves, you got to be very careful on breeding those kind of horses to see if they end to produce. Very rarely do they. Once in a while they do, but overall, you might go broke trying to chase that.
Mhm, mhm. You have a hell of a pedigree yourself, Eric. Your record on the track is pretty hot. Tell me a bit about your business career. You were involved in kind of what we might call over here premium telephone lines or premium telephone numbers.
Basically, I went to a year of college and dropped out, and people say to me, "You ever regret that decision?" I said, "Yeah, I wasted a year." So I went into different businesses. I never had a job working for anybody. But one of the things I started back in 1989 was called the National Race Line, where before the days of the internet, there was no way to find out how your horse did. So I started a pay-per-call phone number where you could hear the stretch call from all the tracks around the country, both thoroughbred and harness. And from there branched out into other programs utilizing 900 numbers, including weather for the Weather Channel over here, psychic lines. We had Dionne Warwick Psychic Friend Show, or lottery results, and ended up running the majority of the pay-per-call calls in the United States for over about 20 years. And eventually they stopped billing them on cell phones, but it was a pretty good run.
That's a pretty successful business track record you have there, Eric. You like to experiment, you're an entrepreneur yourself, and you like to look at things outside the box. Off the line or off air, you were telling me some interesting theories you have about the future of harness racing. Tell me a few of those kind of more unusual approaches. You have some interesting suggestions about the future of racing.
Okay. Well, right, currently some of the bets use the track, the novel bets, are like the Survivor bet at the Meadowlands, where there's only one winner a day if everybody hits until it runs out. I developed that, but I think we should make it more friendlier for the person who wants to do it, such as nothing. We're supposed to be entertainment as well as investing, whatever. So think things like when a horse makes a break before the start. That's what the worst things about our sport. I think if you give people a refund when they bet it up to the first turn, you have a poll there. It would turn one of the worst things about our sport to one of the better things in our sport. I think that's one area. Another area has to be like post positions are drawn. It has to be more. It should be equal. I like the bigger racetracks. I think that what we over here, we get most of the time post time odds. I think it's better. I'm not sure what you have in Ireland, but they have in Australia, where you can lock the bet in at the time that you bet it and make it a game within the game. So the time between races goes rather quickly. I think the drivers here are much too polite. I tell people that if you want to be polite, become an effing maitre d'. On the racetrack, you should be. I don't care if you're brothers. I don't care if you drive the track together. When you're on that track, you're supposed to try to win and do everything you can to win. One letter I just wrote has, in our country, I don't know why they have the objection light on a tote board, because I don't remember the last time I've seen an objection. I think that people, it has to be basically kill or be killed when you're on that track, not actually, but I think you should do everything you can to win. I think a lot of it, because the same drivers drive against each other all the time.
You talk about the driver colony.
Fight. And my drivers know most of the time that if they give an opening or a hole that's not required, there's a good chance I might take them off the horse the next time. Sometimes they do it strategically, and I have no problem with that if you want to get a horse out of your way, or you want to fly a few seconds later to follow them. Yeah. But if you're just doing it to be polite because you drove to the track together, I don't want you driving, and it's bad for our sport.
That's a very interesting point to make. I see that creeping into the sport over here a bit. Well, our sport is very Americanized, and I hear guys talking after racing. I let him go. He let me go. That doesn't sit well with me.
No, in our American football, I can't imagine somebody trying to attack the quarterback and they get there to sack him. I'm sorry, I don't want to hit you so hard. I just don't see that going over so big.
Yeah. It is a bit of an issue now, and a very contentious issue. So, it's interesting that a world leader like yourself has brought this up. You've met our well-known driver, Donald Murphy from Baltimore, County Cork, Eric.
Yes, I have. I've met him a few years, probably I think 3 years, in Lexington, Kentucky, when he comes over for the auctions. Yep, and we've had dinner together, and he's a very nice gentleman when he's sober. No, I'm just
Oh,
joking. Just
gonna,
joking.
you're gonna get
Sober,
him in, you're gonna get him in trouble if his wife's watching.
sober, but no, he's a very, very smart and pleasant person to be around, and he seems to be very knowledgeable.
Good judge of a horse. He's a good judge of horses, Donal. So, Ms. Donal was telling me you have quite an unusual talent which might appeal to some of our younger viewers. Is any children watching this? You could tell an interesting story about, did any children watching this who have bad handwriting? Let's tell them that there's hope for them.
Really? Okay. So when I was younger, being right-handed was pretty much what was expected. And many times for left-handed, they try to encourage people not to be left-handed. So I had a pretty poor handwriting to start with, and I was lefty. So they tried to convert me to right-handed and found out I wrote just as bad with my right hand as my left hand. But today I actually write both with both hands. Sometimes I don't realize I just pick up a pen and write. And I also can write with both hands at one time, or I could do a mirror image where I can write backwards with both hands.
That's a useful talent. Eric, maybe you can make a master forger.
Hasn't got me in the circus yet, but
I think you're doing okay with those 0900 numbers and 150 broodmares. You don't need to join any circus.
no, I hope not.
Well, listen, we're almost out of time. Would you like to pass on any advice for any young people, whether they're caretakers or wannabe drivers or even owners and trainers in the sport? I always ask the leading American figures, give me some advice for our young people who want to get up the ladder in harness racing.
Okay, well, first of all, it's like anything, hard work, study, whatever your area is, listen to everybody. Even if you know more than somebody, that can always teach you something. The business is always evolving and changing. The pedigrees don't ever stay the same, which was one of the things that make this very attractive. And even though money helps, you can't buy winners without knowing what you're doing.
Now that's the yearlings don't know the price tag, do they?
And you're always one step from disaster in our business, which makes the wins so enjoyable.
Sweeter. Well, listen, Eric Cherry, leading figure in American harness racing, massive owner of Broodmares, and a kind benefactor to Irish harness racing by your donation of Heston Blue Chip. Thank you for supporting our industry.
Okay, thank you for having me, and good luck.
Thank you now.